In this video, we're going to talk about how to work with the emotion of anger. Hi, I'm Ron with Lead Skill, and we develop tools and resources to help people manage others better and to manage their own emotions in the process. So anger is something that we all deal with, and it's really something that's pretty tough to manage. We all have an emotion that we default to, or that we find the most familiar, the one that we always go to, pretty often at least. And for me, that happens to be anger. And so let's just explore that for a little bit. We have 8 core emotions. We've talked about this. In fact, we're using the emotions wheel, and on the 8 core emotions in the center, whether it's happy, sad, fear, anger, trust, disgust, surprise, or anticipation, it's helpful to locate ourselves within the wheel, kind of like a compass, and come up with where are we really working from a lot of the time. For me, it happens to be anger. And when we're working with emotions, it's really helpful to start making some distinctions and not just be dealing with the one emotion of mad. I'm mad. And the truth is, a lot of times when we are dealing with anger, we won't even admit that we're mad. One of the types of anger that comes up a lot, which is annoyance. When we're annoyed, we usually don't associate it with being angry, but in fact we are. We're dealing with anger. Just like whenever we're frustrated or critical or just plain mad. All of those are different varieties of anger. And so the question is, how do we deal with it? Wouldn't you know it, when I wanted to film a video on anger and how to manage anger, something happened that just got me really riled and upset, and I threw a fit and had a lot of anger. But we didn't have the camera rolling in the moment. So can't show you what that looked like, but maybe just a little snippet, something like this. That's enough! I'm so angry I could just throw something! Not pretty, is it? So anger is something that I deal with personally, and you would think after so many years that I had better ways to deal with it. And maybe I have, but it's still something that really bothers me and gets under my skin. And so it causes me to take a deeper look. What is it about anger that is really working on me, and what makes it so difficult to control or to manage anger? When you really look at it, researchers show us that anger, within the core of it, often there's something about an offense that we feel, and that something has happened that we feel we've personally been attacked. And so we're going to go on the offensive. I find that there's some truth in that, and I think it's worthwhile whenever you find yourself dealing with anger in a pattern, in a repetitive way, to actually ask yourself the question, what is it that I'm feeling offended about, or that I feel attacked on? What do I feel like is being taken away from me? Is it someone taking my time? Is it someone disrespecting me, taking away the respect that I think I deserve? Or what is it that I'm losing in this situation that I feel so angry about? As useful as it is to understand the roots or the triggers to our anger, I think the thing that most of us want to know, though, is how to control, or how do I manage my anger? How do I keep from letting it run me, or get out of control before I do something that I'm going to regret, or I've got to clean up and apologize for later? And I wish that I had a button that I could show you to push, or there was a silver bullet that just solves this anger problem. I haven't found it yet. Now, there are things that will help you when it comes to dealing with your anger that I found. Just taking a deep breath, calming down, centering, stepping back from the situation, asking for people to just let you take a time out. I'm going to step out and catch a breath of air. Those sort of things are all very helpful and very wise, in fact, good for dealing with the anger. But how do we deal with our anger in the moment? How do we control it when we can't step out, or it's just not a situation where we can, back away? Now, I want to challenge that, because we often think that we can't. And so we've already decided that this is not a situation that I can back down from, or that I can get away from and take a breath or take a break. And you need to really push against that. You need to try and really stretch your boundaries and ask for what you need, ask for the help. There are times when we have got to just get it under control. We've got to pull our anger in and deal with it in the moment. How do we do that? Let me tell you a story that I think is helpful, that comes from some of my own experience. I'm remembering whenever I was learning to fly, I had a couple of different flight instructors, but the guy that I was with that saw me through the end was very experienced, knew what he was doing. I have to admit, though, that we probably didn't have the best chemistry. And one of the parts about flying that really ate my lunch, that really I found a real struggle with, was mastering landings. Now, that's a pretty big deal, right? Is being able to land a plane. That's the whole key to being able to fly, because getting off the ground, there can be problems there, but that's not the most difficult part. The most difficult part is how do you get it back down on the ground safely. And for me, mastering the landings was really tough. And my flight instructor tried to show me every trick that he knew. And the fact is that I wasn't doing it quite right. And he also gave me all the things. I heard the words over and over. I tried to implement them, but I just couldn't get it. And so I was really frustrated. I was angry. And not just one time, like repeatedly. And I still remember whenever my instructor said, well, you're going to learn this because you've got a lot invested in it, and it just may take some more time. And that's not what I wanted to hear, because when you're taking flight lessons, you're paying by the hour, and every hour, every time that you're prolonging this, it's costing you money. And that's something that I do not like to do, is waste money. And so just having to say, for some reason I'm not getting it, and I was just angry. Not really at him, but really more at myself, and angry at the situation and how long it was taking and all of that. And there was just that moment I can recall when I had to say, well, I'm going to have to learn to figure this out. I'm going to have to accept it. I think that is part of the key of dealing with anger, is we are resisting something and we're fighting against it. And what we're doing is we're prolonging the moment of surrender. We're postponing the inevitable, which is, are we going to make peace with the way things actually are, not the way we want things to be? Someone is disrespecting you. You feel it. You're angry about it. Well, that's happening. Are you going to make peace with it and then move on and deal with the situation as it is, or continue stewing about why you're being disrespected and why that person is really messing you over and it's just completely wrong, it's so unjust, it's so not right? If you're in traffic and you've got someone who is acting like a jerk and you're really angry about the way they're driving and the road rage wants to come up, how are you going to deal with that? Are you going to prolong and make them wrong and really try to prove yourself right? Or are you going to do the safe thing and just find a way to work through the situation to minimize the danger to yourself and to other people by the way this person is acting? Are you going to do everything it takes? So I think it's that moment of surrender that we're actually avoiding or postponing, that we've got to quickly identify and then just do the right thing, make the right decision in the moment. The different grades of anger, such as being annoyed, being upset, being mad, being frustrated, being critical, these are different grades or qualities of anger. And it's helpful for us to distinguish between them, because when we are frustrated, when we're feeling the frustration, it's clearly something that we aren't in control over. Whatever is the outside thing frustrating us, but we have control over how much we're going to let it get to us and be frustrated. When we're being critical, we're actually judging or we're scrutinizing something, we're finding it lacking. There's no getting around that. But we can examine whether it's really crucial and it's important enough to be that critical. Or is there a better way to accomplish what we want to get done in the situation? Is there a better way that doesn't entail that hard edge of critical attitude and just really being sharp and judgmental about the whole situation? What I've had to learn to do is to make peace with the fact that I have this impulse to anger within me. And what I really need to do is find a better way to actually channel the energy of anger to get things done, to be constructive, not to be petty, not to find fault, not to just be right about things and to justify myself why it is my way, why it should be this way, why the other person's wrong, why the situation's wrong. That's not productive. And so the more that we can work with our anger and not be under the control of it, we're going to be happier people. We're going to be more productive. We're going to make the situation better. We're going to make the world better. I think it's important to point out that anger can be expressed and show up in a lot of different ways. So let me just give you a couple of examples. We're all familiar, I think, with the kind of anger that is very aggressive and active, in which someone blows their top and they're being very expressive of it. There's also passive aggressive anger. There's the kind of anger that is very low-key, even quiet, but is just like, it's a stewing, it's a simmering, it's high pressure, and the person is just angry and staring right ahead, being quiet about things. But that kind of passiveness can be a very angry way to deal with things. So there's active, aggressive, loud sort of anger, but there's also the quiet and more passive expressions of anger. It's still anger that is behind it, but it just takes a different expression or different form. This is one of those situations where the fuller wheel that has a larger number of emotions on it may be helpful for us, because there's a lot of words on here that we can find to express that kind of anger, such as, I feel frustrated, annoyed, or I feel thwarted. To feel thwarted is like, you're being stymied, you're being held back in place. You don't even have words to express it. And yet there's an anger simmering under the surface that's really bothering you, getting to you. So there's that active-passive spectrum that we could talk about. And I've already alluded to, there's the loud versus quiet spectrum of anger as well, that you can be angry in a very low voice, and it's very clear when someone slows down and they get very hard-edged that they are angry. They're just not shouting and making a really big scene and a ruckus out of this. It's very useful to be able to tune into that. And we acknowledge we can see it, but being able to see that, hey, I have some control and I can choose when I'm angry, how am I going to express it? Because I think often there are people who say, I'm just not the loud, angry type, and therefore they don't even give vent to their anger at all. They develop an ulcer instead. Or they sit in a job or in a relationship that is just awful, and they just take the abuse, and they just sit there quietly and don't realize that there are other ways to express anger productively, constructively, that will let them move forward and not be at the effect of it. When it comes to dealing with our emotions, and particularly the emotion of anger, if it's not something that you struggle over, I hope that this video gives you a chance to practice some empathy and to learn why it is such a struggle maybe for other people, and also some of the things that they're dealing with. Now, you may not be able to help them, especially not in the moment when they're angry, but afterwards, or at a time when you can approach them and have a little more of a productive conversation. Maybe some of these ideas and suggestions can help. Maybe you can share this video with them as well. We're going to keep looking at working with emotions. And so we've got other videos in the series. You can see them here. And you can also check our show notes for a copy of the wheel, either a digital or a physical copy of the wheel, so that you can continue to explore and work with your emotions, whether it's anger, surprise, sadness, frustration, happiness, trust. There's a wide gamut, and we're going to continue looking at the 8 core emotions and how do we work with them. We'll see you on the next video.